Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is Jason Sigman, founder and CEO of HighTek USA. How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I know that we met back in February in Anaheim, and I'm glad we were finally able to put this together.
Yeah. Oh, you were at Westpac?
Yeah, we met at Westpac. It was crazy. Like, I think you had just hired your marketing person, and so it was but it was cool.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Well, and I had a chance to see some of your machinery that you have specific to the cannabis industry. But before we get into the specifics of the machinery, I like to get started a little bit about how you became involved in the cannabis industry. You know, what was it that brought you over?
Well, as it started to become legal in more states, I started to notice that more and more companies were looking for automation solutions because everybody was, starting out just doing it by hand. And then they quickly realized that, hey, there's a lot of people involved to produce the numbers that they need to meet their orders. So it's just for us, it's another product. We're from the food industry. So whether it be carrots, salad, chicken, cannabis is just another product. So that's when we started to look at, why don't we make a solution that's right for that product? Because as I saw they were in the need to automate their equipment, I also noticed that a lot of the equipment that they did get when they thought they were going to automate was equipment that really wasn't what they should be getting. Or maybe, that was what was interesting about the cannabis industry is I'd go to a factory and they'd say, look at my new machine. And you would look at it and go, it's something that someone just invented. And it's like, that type of machine's been invented for 20, 30, 40 years. It's already been invented. So, it took a little bit, I think, for them to realize that some of the stuff they needed or wanted was already out there in the marketplace. And then, we designed equipment specifically for their products or their application. And I mean, we've been off to the races ever since. It started as a small part of our business because we're primarily food. But it quickly has turned into almost half of our orders are for that industry.
About how many years ago did you start manufacturing cannabis-specific equipment?
I would say it's been about 3 years now.
Okay, and 3
years.
Talking about
it might be four. You know how time flies at our age, right? It's like you don't even remember how old you are sometimes. But I think it's about 3 to 4 years. And then COVID, that's like a block of time none of us remember anyway. So
between the pandemic and having 2 young children, I have no concept of time anymore.
Exactly.
It's just I start at the beginning, I make it to the end of the day, and hope to start it all over again tomorrow. But so what I found particularly interesting is that you have this rich history of, I think, like 20 years making packaging equipment, and specifically in the food industry, because one thing that I saw with early cannabis equipment too is that there wasn't sort of that food grade material that was being used. There was other material being used that was not easy to clean, which created some real problems in the industry. Is that what you ran into with some of those systems that you were replacing early on?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you would notice that just what they were using, it just wasn't right for the application, which, being in the food industry, everything has to be sanitary, stainless steel. So there is a different level of that we're used to that not every cannabis guy needs to that level. Like a lot of our food customers, they have guys that come in with yellow jumpsuits at night with hard pressure hoses and they spray everything. Cannabis guys don't need that. But there is a level of need that they do have for cleanliness, ease of use. We had a demo yesterday, and that's one thing the customer did say when he was here. He's like, yeah, we looked at equipment like this a long time ago, but it would just, with the stickiness of our product, it would just build up so fast. It was a nightmare. And he goes, wow, look at the advancements that have come since then. I don't know what he looked at, but we really haven't made any advancements in our equipment. It's just we made a machine specifically for that product, which it's the same machine that we make for other products, just with different features, size different accuracies. Because as you know, cannabis has got to be way more accurate than a bag of potato chips. We're talking a gram or an eighth to the hundredth of a gram. where the food industry is normally a tenth of a gram.
That's one of the things that I noticed looking at some of the equipment on your website. Can you tell me a little bit about the product line that's specific to cannabis?
Well, it started with our HighTek mini weigher, right? That's our core product, which is what weighs and dispenses cannabis flower or even gummies at speed and super high accuracy. Our machine will do 40, 50 weighments a minute, where when people are going by hand, their person's doing 1 to 2 a minute. And there's really not any system that could go underneath our HighTek mini weigher that could keep up with those speeds. So our scale is never the bottleneck on any production line because it's the fastest machine. Nothing can go as fast, whether it be a jar line or a pouch line. So that's our core product. Then as we started to sell that product in the industry, that's when it became more apparent that, hey, they're looking for future or additional automation needs, and they're not having success with the items that they found. So some of the larger companies trusted in us to work together in R&D specific other pieces of automation equipment for the line. One of those being like a gross tear jar indexing system, because a lot of cannabis is sold in jars, and those jars all weigh different amounts, which makes, as far as a customer checking the weight in a jar, very difficult because they can't take an empty jar, weigh it, and then take a filled jar and weigh it because all the jars weigh a different amount. So we made a system that indexes empty jars, weighs the empty jar, then we fill the jar, and then we weigh the filled jar. So the system knows exactly how much flour is in each jar and knows whether it's a passing jar to send down to a labeler or capper, or to put it to the reject side because the weight was inaccurate. So that's one item that we've added. Then with jars, right, there's capping, right? So then we added a capper to our system. We had some customers who said, hey, we've tried a lot of different cappers, but we always have a problem with, I don't know, like here's a jar. We always have a problem with threads, when it gets automated put on there, and we don't want that. So we worked and designed our capper to not have those issues that they've been experienced with other suppliers. Now the market's kind of shifting to, we call them pre-made pouches, but in the cannabis industry, everybody calls them Mylar bags. I think that's just because they buy them as Mylar bags and fill them by hand, but we call them pre-made pouches. But now the industry is kind of shifting that direction. We've been selling a lot of pre-made pouch machines. It's probably a cost standpoint. It's a lot easier to store a lot of empty pouches than a whole lot of empty jars. But so that's been one of our hottest items this year has been our, we call it our HighTek mini linear, which is a linear pre-made pouch machine.
What, starting with the mini weigher, what were a lot of these subsequent products iterations that were built off of that, or were these entirely new concepts that you kind of created from the ground up?
Some was a new concept, like the gross tear, right? That was something we've never had before, and we designed it from the ground up, basically. We took, we make jar indexing systems, so it was kind of the same thing, but we had to incorporate other features and load cells and a lot more logistics and stuff involved to make it do what the customer wanted it to do. So that was kind of a ground up. As far as like our linear pouch machine, we do lots of pouch machines. It's just we made one now specifically for the cannabis industry. See, what happens a lot is we're from food, right? If I go to a food factory, they may have 20 production lines. They have a full maintenance staff. They work 24/7. When the machine breaks, they have technicians, sophisticated, but when you get to the cannabis sector, not to say that they're not sophisticated, but this is like their first piece of automation equipment. They may only have one. They don't have a maintenance staff. They just have an operator, a manager. So that's another problem I see is a lot of companies sell them these sophisticated machines at high dollar values. And then you get there and you say, how does it work? And they go, well, we don't use it because it doesn't work. So everything we've designed, one, it has to work. And two, it has to be, I call it cannabis friendly. It has to be easy to operate, easy to use. And so we make specific, like our linear pouch machine, it can only do 20 pouches a minute, where our normal pouch machine can do 40 to 50 pouches a minute. But that's not a problem because getting cookies into a bag at 40 a minute, that's easy. Cookies weigh and they fall. Getting flour into a bag at 40 a minute, it's not really feasible. Flour doesn't fall like that. So 20 a minute's perfect. And the machine's so easy to use. It's so small, it fits. That's another issue we found. Food industries, they all have big ceilings, roll-up doors. Then you get to a cannabis factory and it's like, where's your roll-up door? And they say, we don't have one. All we have is this man door right here. How do you get all your equipment through there? So we've designed systems to fit through a man door. It's just been a learning curve for us the first year where we're like, because they don't know, we're from an industry where everything's known. They're all starting out and they don't know. So we're working to find solutions because sometimes they can't do anything. They're already in that room. They can't add a big giant door. So we've made solutions to whatever the customer has. They've got a big warehouse, we have a solution. They've got a room where they just want to pack, we have a solution.
I mean, that's incredible to me. That's incredible to me to just think that they don't have typical access that you would see in an industrial or manufacturing setting. The other thing that kind of blew my mind was I actually just ran into this having a conversation about pre-rolls in the industry and packing pre-rolls is how the paper from pre-roll to pre-roll is all a different weight. So I never really considered how each jar would have a different weight, which would completely throw things off down the line. That's just
exactly.
I mean, in a young industry, it seems like there's a little bit more added details that only kind of further complicate things. But it sounds like you're engineering those problems out of the equation.
Yeah, because for us, and it's always been this way, is service is our number one focus, right? Some of our customers are Tyson Foods, Foster Farms. They demand excellent service, but we treat all of our customers like they're those top tier brands, no matter who they are. And that carried over into the cannabis sector as well. But part of that is we need to train them and provide them equipment that minimizes their need for service. You know what I mean? What good is a machine if they can't operate it and then they're calling you all the time for support questions? So we're here when they need us, but we design solutions that actually work and that they can support themselves. So when they do need something, it's something they really need help, and we're here to help them.
Could you talk about any specific features that the machines have that make them relatively maintenance-free or easy to use?
So like our HighTek mini weigher, I mean, it uses all stepper motors for the drives, but that's kind of industry standard for our combination weighers. And, for cannabis, a lot of guys are like, why do you call it a mini weigher? Compared to what like a raw chicken machine is, it's much smaller. But there really is no, for the mini weigher, it's servo motors and everything's enclosed. I mean, you just control it through an HMI screen, write your program, run production. The only thing you have to do is clean it, which is a question we get asked a lot when people come for a demo is like, well, how long does it take to clean it between strains? This is stuff we had to learn is that, when they switch strains, they actually need to do what's called, they call it a quick clean, and that's, the customers tell us that takes them about 15 to 20 minutes. And then at the end of the day, they do a full clean, and they say that takes them about an hour. But there's really no other maintenance involved other than like any scale, you want to zero adjust it before you use it, and then you want to calibrate it before you're going to run for the day so you have the highest accuracy. But other than that, it's just to clean it, which is very minimal. Everything's been designed to just be removed without a tool, so it's not cumbersome to take apart to clean. Some customers even just take the parts off. And in the cannabis world, they put them in a dishwasher and wash them, or they'll take, it's really simple. Some features we designed with our machine that the other machines in the industry didn't have is ours has Lexan enclosures around it, right? Because super high accuracy, 100th of a gram accuracy with any scale. If you're in a factory and there's fans blowing, air conditionings, if there's wind turbulence, that'll affect your weights, right? So we built ours with Lexan enclosures around it that are removable. So that protects it. If it's a hot room, you can have the AC blowing. It's not going to interfere with anything. And it also helps contain all the customers' keef dust, right, inside to the machine. So it's not getting all over the place outside of the machine. Just different features like that. We've incorporated a lot of new features. Like ours comes with a feeder unit that feeds flour to the scale precisely, which is what's needed for high accuracy. Like for me to run high accuracy and at speed, I got to have a consistent amount of flour all the time. So our feeder unit does that. Then one of our first customers, we know, they asked, hey, is there a way to get some of the keef out? So we've took our feeder unit, we redesigned it to have a keef screen. So now as the flour is running across it, they're collecting their keef and it's not going in the customer's bag. So just a lot of different features like that. I mean, there's a lot of neat features, which is this industry's cool for me because food's cool. It's always nice to do different products. I mean, if you walk through a grocery store, no one really realizes how many different products there are. I mean, if you name it, we do it. Jelly beans to raw chicken for Chipotle to it's everything. But for food, the machine just has to work, right? It has to work and be easy to operate. For cannabis, there's another factor that's pretty cool. It has to work, be easy to operate, but it has to look cool, which that's what I've been having the most fun with, is adding all these features and options and then also making the machine look cool. So when they get it, they're all smiling when they're using it and they love, Instagram. And so now we're actually taking customers' logos and their brand and incorporating them on the machine. So when they're doing their social media campaigns, their brand's shown in a cool way with, so that's been pretty exciting for us because that's new. That's nothing we've ever done before, is have to make, a cool factor with the machine as well as work and, do what it's supposed to do.
What are some of the other things that you've done to add to that cool factor for the machines?
We added green LED lighting, which with the machine's like a high polished stainless steel. So people always say it looks sexy, but that just blings it all out, with the Lexan enclosure, that just blings it all out. Then we've taken that LED lighting and made it where it can change colors based on the status of the machine. Like maybe the machine's running, it's green, or if it's paused, it could be blue. So now the operator can know what the machine's doing just by looking at the machine because it's illuminated in specific colors. Why did we choose green? It's kind of interesting. Our color's green. We're from the food industry. I've been in the food industry 25 years. I've been in this industry. HighTek's been in business 20 years. Our name's HighTek. We weren't affiliated with anything cannabis, and our color's green. So it just mended really well over there.
Having worked in the industry for 25 years, having worked at HighTek for 20, do you feel reinvigorated ever since you entered the cannabis industry?
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoy it. You know what I mean? I enjoy it a lot more too, because this is all new to them. So a lot of these places we go, like I said, this is their first automation machine. So their eyes light up a lot more than a food customer who's already got 20 machines. You know what I mean? It is a little more rewarding. And it's a total different industry because, as you know, when we grew up, this was totally illegal. You know what I mean? So it's like we all have our stories of when we were a kid and stuff like that. So that's what's even more interesting. It's like, who would have thought, 20 years ago, what we would be doing today? And then some of the levels of automation that we've been doing. I mean, we've done systems where it's completely automated, full production lines where it's like a Foster Farms factory. I mean, we've gone from the smallest to the biggest guys where they're doing everything. And that's pretty interesting to see too, where it's big, full scale production, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds every day, nonstop.
When a project comes to you, do those larger projects take longer? Is every installation a custom solution for that customer?
Well, that's one thing I do really like about cannabis is flower is flower. I mean, not everybody's flower is the same, right? True. Mm-hmm. But product wise, for the scale and production, flower is flower. Where in the food industry, everything's different. You're doing almonds, I need a little different machine than if you're doing, spinach. I need a little different machine, different features. Cannabis, it's almost cookie cutter because everyone's doing the same thing. They're doing the same target weights. So it makes it really easy. It makes it easier to support them too, because we can preload the machine with programs before it even goes out. not that we have to set it up in the field, because it's all the same. Now, the thing that changes is the room issues that I told you about. Some guys have giant warehouse. Other guys are like, well, dude, we got like a 30 by 20 room. So we have to adjust and modify design layouts as to what piece is going to go where. Is there a turn needed to move to fit in the room, or what can they fit in the room?
What was that like the first time that the customer told you they didn't have a door to get it in?
Well, we've heard more than that. Yeah. So that was an eye opener. It makes sense now looking back, because I don't know, you're in Wisconsin, you said, right?
Yeah.
We're in Sacramento, right? So all the licenses in Sacramento have to be in the city of Sacramento, like in a certain area. So now that I think about it, they're limited on the buildings they get to choose from to do what they need to do. And maybe the landlord doesn't say, yeah, you can knock walls out. But it was an eye opener. Luckily, our mini weigher happened to just be the right size to fit through there. Then it became, okay, these other pieces, we just need to know ahead of time. Let's design them in a way that if they have a door, it'll fit through there. If they don't have a door, it'll fit through there. So we just kind of we put that in our mind now when we design specific items, like a stand for the scale, or and just know ahead of time. Now we prep the customer. If they're ordering a specific piece of equipment or interested in a specific piece of equipment, we let them know ahead of time, hey, this machine is X by X. You're going to need to make sure. So now we have all those questions up front. And then, if we have a solution, we do. Sometimes there's no solution. I mean, you can't put a 10-foot square through a 3-foot hole without cutting a hole in the wall.
When I asked the question, you kind of smiled. What are some of the other difficult challenges that you've run into in the industry?
Well, one was, the customer orders the equipment. We don't deliver the equipment, right? We schedule a truck, or the customer schedules a truck. It all depends on how the contract was quoted. And then, we provide startup support, it's what it's called. Like at a food factory, you sell a machine, all the equipment gets there. They have a company or themselves install the equipment, because sometimes you need forklifts, you need chains, you need things like that we're all over the United States. We don't travel with those things. So it's just, everyone has a forklift, you would think. So then we, went on an install and, hey, where's the machine? Is it in place? No, it's outside in a crate. Well, how are we going to get it inside? Where's your forklift? Well, you guys didn't bring a forklift? It's like, no, we don't travel with a forklift, or we've had trucks deliver the machine and the same thing. Like, how are we going to get it off the truck? Well, we use a forklift. We don't have a forklift. So that was all a learning curve early on. Now we have to prep them. Do you have a forklift? You're going to need to have a forklift, So it's just things like that we took for granted as just industry standard, that now they're kind of learning that, and they don't have to have a forklift, I guess. They'll rent one now if they don't have one. But that was just kind of a learning curve that we needed to know. There's things they're not used to either. So we just need to be more upfront exactly what they're going to need to do before we get there.
How many companies in the industry are still hand packing?
I couldn't tell you that. There's so many companies in the industry, I couldn't even tell you how many there are. I think about it, it's amazing, right? Like, if you think I do chicken, it's like, well, how many plants in California are actually packaging raw chicken? There's probably 4. But then it goes cannabis, it's like there's probably 4,000. It's amazing how many there are. A lot of them still are hand packing. But those are ones we don't know too much about because they haven't used us for automation. Sometimes they are a little bit hesitant to take the step right into automation. Or, we get customers, they want everything. And most customers don't need everything. It's like if you're doing by hand, you're doing 1 to 2 a minute. If you just get the HighTek mini weigher in a stand and a foot pedal, you can have one person operate our machine and they'll be able to do 12 to 15 a minute. With 0 to 0.03 of a gram accuracy. And that's like a game changer. It's like you were doing 1 to 2 a minute. Now you can do 12 with one person. That's, So, but some are hesitant to take the step, or like I said early on, there was a lot of companies that were just sell these guys whatever. That's been another problem, is gaining customers' trust, which that one's hard for me, is because service is our number one thing. My brand is my number one thing. We're never going to sell a customer something that isn't going to work. We're never going to tell you what you want to hear if it's not the truth. We're going to tell you the truth. And we do lose sales sometimes because there's companies that will just, there's salesmen in every walk of life. They'll just tell you whatever you want to hear until they get the order. In the end, it doesn't work. But there was a lot of that. So that made it difficult for us early on gaining customers' trust, because they've heard stories from a guy they knew, or they experienced something at another company they worked for where it was a machine that just didn't work. So overcoming that was difficult, but now that's pretty easy because we've had so many successful installs. It's like they've all had bad experiences. Then they get HighTek. They're like, wow, this thing's great. And we build a relationship that now, I have a list. It's not a mile long, but it feels like a mile long of customers who we can have any customer call just to talk to, ask them, so gaining the customer's trust is a lot easier now because we have the history, 3+ years, hundreds of installs, customers they can talk to. But that was the hard part, was gaining trust, because there's a lot of, in this industry in particular, there was a lot of people buying stuff that just wasn't right, and it ended up being a waste of money. And then, when you own a business and you're like, yeah, let's invest X amount in this new machine, and then it doesn't work, that's not a good feeling.
No, I've heard that quite a bit in this industry, as a matter of fact, about it's almost like a common joke, all the dusty equipment in the corner that they just don't use anymore.
Yeah.
Is the other biggest obstacle for certain companies finding the capital to invest in equipment?
Yes and no. We haven't had that issue too much. There have been, I don't know where they get their capital, where they have, a lot of them have investors. We're a little different than most companies, that we can do a lot of in-house financing, let's call it.
Okay.
If a customer is close to me, which I'm blessed that we're in Rancho Cordova, which is Sacramento, there's a ton of companies in Sacramento. If they're in Sacramento, a lot of times what we've done is we either let them rent a piece of equipment at a fair rate with a purchase option that kind of helps them get started, right? Or let them 12 to 18 months, break the payment up over 12 to 18 months, no interest. I've tried to make it easy on them. It's been a little risky. I would like to do that to all the states, you know what I mean? But I've tried it in where was it? Oklahoma one time. Didn't really work out. Had to collect the machine back. So the cannabis, it's a little riskier doing that because, especially the market's kind of taken a downturn a little bit over the past 2 years, let's say. But we try to do the best we can to help those customers that may need some help. But you do have to weigh the risk and the odds, because if somebody's far away, it's a little bit harder to keep an eye on, if they're not making a payment. But we're, if you talk to any of our customers, we're probably too easygoing. We're a little, it's just my nature, right? We build relationships, and sometimes in a relationship, you got to give a little, right? Everybody needs a break. So, we have no problem working together to get everyone's goal, which is, the customer's success, which in the end, that's our success.
That is just an incredibly inspiring outlook when it comes to how you run your business. That's awesome.
I appreciate that.
Does a lot of your business in the cannabis industry come via word of mouth, or how do a lot of people find you, and where are they in the process when they find you?
In the beginning, it was word of mouth, especially through California. And I used to joke a lot that's, we're really good at machines, we're really good at service, but we're horrible at marketing, right? That's just what it was. And then there's a lot of other companies that they're not really good at machines, they have horrible service, but they're really good at marketing, and they sell a lot of equipment. And that's why you met our new marketing director at the trade show, because that's one thing I did this year, was to hire someone that's their task now, is to get our brand out there, because every customer that knows us loves us. The problem is there's a lot of customers out there that have never heard of us. And she's been doing a great job on that. So now we, magazine ads, word of mouth, internet, YouTube, people are just finding us. But now it's kind of spreading like wildfire. And then we work with a lot of outside sales groups that specialize in the cannabis industry, where they or more like a turnkey sales group, where it's like, okay, we're going to put a system together for you. HighTek supplies the scale. You need a labeler. This company supply. They can put a whole package together, because we don't sell everything. Sometimes customers ask that. Why don't you sell everything? And if a company sells everything, that usually means they're not good at anything. So we stick with what we are experts at, because service is number one. So if a customer calls and they have a question, me and my guys have to have the answer right now. And that's the equipment that we sell. So then we find companies also, if it's a labeler, we find companies that's what they specialize in. And then we recommend them, not that the customer has to get them, but that way, if they have a labeler issue, we know the company they went with is going to have excellent support. So word of mouth, but now we've been doing marketing pretty heavily, doing lots of trade shows, CannaCon, MJ BizCon's coming up. We're going gangbusters at MJ BizCon. So it's out there now.
Well, that's excellent. And I hope I get an opportunity to meet with you at MJ Biz. It would be great to catch up. When you say you're going big for the show, anything you want to tease in advance?
Well, we will have everything there. So it'll be the biggest booth HighTek's ever had at any show, food or cannabis. And then we're going to have everything. Last year, I had 8 mini weighers in my booth, which was awesome. That's a lot of scales. But we didn't have all the other pieces of the line in our booth, because you're limited on space, right? But this year we're going big, and we're going to have full jar indexing lines, full gross tear lines, pouch machines, everything cannabis for automation. We're going to have it in our booth.
Oh, wow.
What we also did is pretty interesting is, I don't know if you're familiar with all the supply chain issues, but over the past few years, that's been a big issue for most companies. So for the past 2 years, all we did was build inventory. So if anyone ever needs anything, we have it in stock. I probably have 24 mini weighers in stock, and that's my goal, is to one's gaining customers' trust. 2, sometimes if you got it, they're going to buy it. And I never want to lose a sale to a company that doesn't provide great equipment, but the customer just bought it because they had it. And sometimes, even though you try to tell the customer, hey, in the end, that's not going to be a good choice, you can't, they make their own decision. So my goal, or my job, is to make sure whatever their needs are, I can meet them the best I can. So since cannabis is, like I said, it's more cookie cutter, everything's the same, it was really easy to say, okay, boom, we'll build a whole bunch of these for stock. That way, if we get a customer who's interested, we got one ready to go.
That's really interesting. I was going to ask you about whether or not you've run into any supply chain difficulties. Is that how did you foresee any issues with the supply chain, or is it once you realized they were kind of cookie cutter, you wanted to make sure that you had at least X amount on the shelves at all times?
It was kind of both. I mean, when I first got into cannabis, right, a friend of mine who's the one who kind of he's like, hey, you guys, you should do a machine for this field. And he worked at a company in Greenfield, California. And I was like, you know what, we'll do that. And we made one, and he was the first one to try one. And he goes, dude, this thing's awesome. You should build 10. I'm just telling you, you should build 10, because they're going to be gone like that. So I took his advice, and we built 10. And then that's when, shortly after, the COVID supply chain issues happened, but we were already good because we already had inventory. But I used that there was going to be an issue with supply chain issues, that not only for cannabis, for food, we began to fully stock everything. So, you could be a guy I just did one, hazelnuts, right? They wanted a full production line doing hazelnuts, scale, platform, bagger, incline conveyor. We have it all in stock. I mean, how can the guy beat that? Everyone else is going to say 30 to 36 weeks. And we're going to say, hey, it's HighTek brand, great support, great price, and you can have it in 3 weeks. So once I made that change, that's what we do now. Now you can't do that for everything. You get a customer who does raw chicken. It's more of a customized machine that has to be custom made, but no one's going to have that in stock. So
Right.
it's, I try to have everything in stock for, the 80% of the, let's just call it the cookie cutter applications where it's more of a standard retail, whatever project.
What's the biggest machine that you've made for cannabis so far?
Biggest in size?
Yeah. Biggest in size. Well, because I was looking at some of the specs online that it goes anywhere from, the models have anywhere from 10 to 24 head models. So and then you were talking about building an entire system. So I'm just kind of curious, what the biggest ones that you made?
Yeah. So like for scales, we would only do pretty much our scales, our mini-ware is a 14 head. That's perfect. You don't need any more because as you make more, like in food industry, we do 24 heads. If you want to mix, you get a bag that's got broccoli, carrots, cauliflower in it. You may need like a 20 head scale that can run 3 different products that mix it. Nobody's mixing any kind of flour, right? So 14 heads the way to go. And then as you add more heads, the machine gets bigger. And as the machine gets bigger, it's gonna, drop. No one wants to drop their flour from like way up here. So that's why our mini weighers size the way it is, 14 heads. That's the only model, I guess, or size we would sell for cannabis because it's like perfect. You don't need anything more. You don't want anything more, and you definitely don't need anything less. For pouch machines, our rotary pouch machine, which is the one that can do like 40 a minute. It's a pretty big machine. It's probably like 6 by 6 square, 5 feet tall. It's not fitting through that door, that's for sure. But for cannabis, it's overkill. Like I said, they can't put flour in a bag that fast. So our linear pouch machine, it's it's only 2.5 feet wide and maybe 5 feet long with its own wheels. They could roll that through that door and it'll meet the exact speed that they could keep up with. So yeah, I mean, when I say a full system, full system's multiple pieces of equipment. So like a jarring line, they'll have we call it a descrambler table where they put all their empty jars and then they come off and they're fed onto a conveyor that's now a line of empty jars. And then we may have our bottle air rinse. A lot of customers are having issues where they get their jars or containers from overseas. And then when they come in, they may have a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood pallet or broken glass inside the jar, and they're not catching that. So we have our bottle air rinse where the empty bottles come in, it inverts them upside down, blasts them with deionized air, puts them back on the line, and then they go to our next machine, which may be a standard jar indexing system that's feeding the empty jars underneath the mini weigher as we then dispense, 3.5 grams. And then it would exit that and go to the next machine, which could be the capper, right? Which is now automatically putting caps on the jars. And then it could go to the next machine, which is a labeler. It just goes on and on. And then, at the end of the line's a final rotary table where it accumulates all the finished product for the people who are doing the pack out. So jarring lines can get pretty intense and pretty, a lot of pieces and parts.
Yeah.
Pouches, on the other hand, I mean, you've just taken a whole giant line and you've condensed it, and it's like, I mean, pouches are, and that may be another reason why things are kind of seem to be going to pouches over jars is one, just the space you need to actually do a whole thing is way less than what you'd need to fully automate a jar line. I mean, it's like night and day.
What could the Cannabis Equipment News audience expect from HighTek next?
What could they expect from us next? It's hard because I feel like this year we've checked all the boxes, right? I mean, we've got the best product for combination weighing of flour, jarring of flour, now pouching of flour. So it's just going to be to continue to market and get the word out there. Work with our customers and do a lot more. We've been getting a lot of video testimonials, right? Where we're traveling to these customer sites. Because like I said, everyone who gets it, they love it. They love us. So it's like, okay, let's put that on camera like we are now. Let's put that in a way that a customer can look at it and go and answer. Because another thing was, a lot of customers ask questions I don't know the answer to. I'm from the food industry. They start talking flower talk. I don't pretend to know the answer. So now we just connect them with our customers, and they talk the talk that they understand and get the answers question. And that's part of the video testimonials too, is they're answering a lot of questions that the customers have on these testimonials, such as cleaning. How long does it take to clean? So that's what I found is the best about the testimonials, is a lot of times the people talk about stuff that answers questions that potential clients have. And I like that better because, they're hearing exactly the answer that they need to hear, and not one. I don't package cannabis. I don't have the exact answer, and I'd rather them hear it from someone in their industry than from, let's just call it, a salesman, if that's what they want to think of me as. So just continuing onward and upward, and happy customers, and growing like crazy.
No, you're right about the importance of hearing it from an industry peer. But another thing, and I've covered the greater manufacturing industry as a whole, the one thing that I'm constantly amazed by in cannabis is how there's that camaraderie, how helpful everyone is business to business about, oh, you're using this, well, you should try this because it's better, and this is why. Like, everyone seems a lot more willing to share that secret sauce than I've seen anywhere else.
And I'd appreciate that too, is because like I said, gaining customers' trust, right? That's hard. So a lot of our customers who had that fear factor, let's call it, when they get our machine, they're like, wow, this thing's awesome. They're excited to tell other people. They're like, if you have any, customers have questions, tell them to call me. It's because they knew what it felt like, you know what I mean? To worry and not know, and and they're all that, like you said, they're all willing to help each other out, and that's been a pretty cool thing. Because in the food industry, sometimes it's like, well, what industry? It's like if I'm doing any project, a salad project, and I go, hey, I got a salad guy who's got a question. Well, who do they work for? Oh no, we can't share. It's all secret. They don't want to share anything about anything because it's like, it's secret stuff. Even though everyone knows what everyone's doing, they still can't talk about it like it's a secret. But that has been a really nice thing in the cannabis side, that as long the customers are so willing to talk about their experience and answer questions for the, some of our customers are, they've been in the game a long time. They know a lot of stuff, and there may be a new customer who's like, he's just starting out, and that OG, let's call him, is willing to talk to that guy and answer all the questions he may have, which is pretty cool,
When you put a new system, when you install a new system, say at a company that's been doing things primarily by hand, how soon after you turn it on for the first time does the true capability of the machine blow their mind?
I think that'd be day 2.
Yeah.
Day 2, they're smiling. For a normal installation process startup for food, we used to quote 3 days on site. That's about how long it takes to get the machine in place, program it, set it up, make sure it's communicating with other items, and then kind of train the people on how to use it. For cannabis, that doesn't really work. We found they need 4 days, right? That's because they never had a machine before. It's all new to them. So we do 4 days on site, and that last day we just spend making things happen that we know are going to happen. Like maybe they didn't put a bucket on right, so we'll not put one on right, or stick a big flower nug behind a bucket. So we make things happen that they have to see what the result was, and then find it and correct it. And then once we do that, that's they're off to the races, and we never hear from them because they got it. But yeah, usually the second day is when they're like, grinning, and it's just like, this is awesome. Wow.
Well, Jason, I really do appreciate you taking the time with me today. Before we get out of here, is there anything in particular that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience knows about HighTek or any of your machines?
Just know, we free 24-hour tech support. We stock all the parts for our machines. It's all about service, even though for the cannabis side, service hasn't been a need. I kind of, when we went into cannabis, I thought, they're probably going to need a lot of parts. They're going to break things. You know what I mean? I thought they were going to break things. But because the food industry, they break things all the time. They just beat the equipment. Food industry, they beat the equipment. They just beat it. It's like a horse. They just beat it, and it runs, and they never stop to fix anything. Cannabis, it's more, they white glove the equipment. They treat it like it's medical grade and it's Ferrari. And I mean, in 3 years, we've had like 0 service needs. It's amazing. I thought it would be a lot different, but they really take care of the equipment. And but what I'd like them to know is, if their customer ever needs anything, we're there for them. Free 24-hour tech support. We stock all the parts. We have machines in stock, and I kind of built our slogan, right? It's experience, performance, support, and success. It's just something I came up with because that's us. We have the experience, we provide the support. Our machines perform like we say they're going to do, and those 3 things lead to not only your success but our success. So experience, performance, support, and success.
Right? And we're in the middle of a supply chain crisis, and you have product in store.
I got it.
Well, Jason, thanks again, man. It's been a pleasure, and I hope we do get a chance to catch up in Vegas.
Yeah, definitely stop by. I'd love that too.
Excellent. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. All right. For Jason Sigman, founder and CEO of HighTek USA, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.